Welcome to Hunt Wild Live Well. I'm just in the process of packing my clothes for a winter camping trip I'm going to be doing. Leaving tomorrow morning and going to be gone for 3 days. It's going to be a cold one. The weather forecast says it's going to get down to about minus 20. So I want to be prepared as always when you go winter camping. I thought I would take a minute just to go over the clothes that I'm packing. This is similar pretty much every time I go. And if it's your first time going, it's something that could be helpful for you. Really, if it's your first time going winter camping, the big things are you have to have the right clothes. If you have the right clothes and you have a nice, good quality winter sleeping bag and just something to get you off the ground, like a foam mat or a small cot, and then something to go over your head, and it could be as simple as just a tarp on a rope, just in case you get that winter precipitation coming down. So the gear that I have here, this is things I've acquired over quite a few years. When I first started, I didn't have all this. You don't need all these fancy things. And of course, there's way more that you could get, or I will probably get over the years as well. But it's more the way that I approach it that I think would be helpful. So what you see here, this is how I always like to start. I lay things out and I break them into three categories. The first category is my workwear. So workwear is basically what I put on when I leave the truck. So this is what I'll wear while I pull my sled with all my gear out there, while I'm making camp, if I got to chop wood, anything like that that you might get sweaty in. So you want to have dedicated workwear because one of the big challenges when you're out there is actually not getting too hot. Because if you get hot and you get sweaty, your clothes get wet and then you're in trouble. So this is my workwear section. The next is my rest wear. So this is what I wear when I'm just kind of sitting around camp, maybe doing some ice fishing, cooking, just simple things where you're pretty relaxed. You're not gonna start sweating because you're working too hard, but you also are more prone to get cold because you're not moving around. And then last is my sleepwear. So I always keep my sleep things completely separate. Sometimes if it's really cold, I might take one thing from another pile and add it in if it's dry. But I like to make sure that my sleep stuff is in its own bag, completely separate from all the rest of my gear, so that I know nighttime when I go to bed, I'm going to have dry clothes to put on. There's nothing worse than being in a scenario where it's the middle of the night, it's black, you don't want to be hiking out, and all of a sudden you realize that your warm sweater that you were wearing earlier when you were chopping wood is actually all wet, and sometimes I've had it happen before where it's stiff as a board, it's just frozen solid. So that's why I always keep that separate. I'll start with the sleepwear. Basically, what I have here is a pack jacket. So this is a fold down jacket that's insulated. I use it as a pillow, so it's just an extra piece of gear if you happen to be in that situation where your main coat got wet, you got something else you can put on your way out. I have two pairs of thermal socks, some long johns, some fleecy pajama pants, and a hooded sweatshirt. So those are what I'm going to be sleeping in. I keep those just for sleeping. I might take one of the two pairs of thermal socks and put them on in the evening when I'm just sitting around the campfire before bed if it's really cold, but generally I don't do that. The next thing I have here is my relaxing wear. So I have a pair of insulated pants, a big wool sweater, two pairs of gloves that are mittens, and a nice warm Tough Duck hat with the ear flaps. So the mittens, these are a brand new pair actually. I just got these today. My wife made them for me and I'm very excited to use them. Got the finger holes and everything. So these are wool, so they're nice and warm. And then these are the ones that I usually bring, which are just a snowmobile mitten. It's like a leather on the outside and then warm on the inside. So these are nice, again, if it's wet or cold. Like if there's a wind and a wet snow, that's sort of the worst scenario for just getting the warmth zapped right out of you. And then finally is my workwear. So my workwear is pretty light. A pair of shorts. Some people laugh at that, but usually when I go winter camping, the first thing I do is before I leave the truck, I put on shorts. I put on shorts and then I put on my insulated overalls over that. I like the overalls versus the coveralls because you can kind of it's more easy to layer and take things off as you need to. So that's the next thing I have is two shirts, two long sleeve t-shirts. One of them is actually like a quick dry base layer, which works awesome because if you do get a little sweaty, it dries out in a flash. So I'll be wearing shorts with an insulated long sleeve tee and my coveralls for most of the day. I pack an extra pair of just regular cotton socks and underpants for every day that I'm going to be out there. A nice warm scarf. So this is actually some kind of a throw. It belongs to my wife, but I stole it and it works really well. It's really warm. And then a spring jacket. So again, nothing too warm. The spring jacket is nice because it cuts the wind. Again, if there's wet snow, it'll keep you protected. But you're not going to get too hot and sweaty. I rarely, like I used to bring a coat with me and I found it's very rare that during the day when you're moving around and trying to do things and, you know, experience the outdoors as you're there to do, that you actually are in a situation where you're getting cold. You're usually the other way, at least personally. It's as soon as you stop and sit down and stop moving that you start to feel that chill. And then the last thing is a pair of work gloves. So I always, again, keep a pair of work gloves separate from everything else. So that's usually when you're going to set up your tent. You know, you need to dig a few feet down to find the ground and then put your tent down there. Your gloves will get wet and you want to have dedicated work gloves. Usually they will turn into icicles by the time that we're done. But when I get up in the morning, I'll keep the warm ones on, put these near the fire, let them kind of melt a bit, and then you can get your hands in there and start to warm them up with your body heat before you go and do whatever you're going to do that day. Yeah, so that's the basics of the clothes I'm going to bring. Again, I'll probably just use one bag, but I'll use maybe some garbage bags or something just to keep them separate to make sure that I have a bit of a vapor separation between things that are going to be wet and things that need to stay dry. So it's this is one of the more important things. Most of these things, like when I first started, you can just use what you have. I mean, if you live in a cold weather climate like I do, you probably have cold weather clothes. It might not be specialized camping gear, but it'll work. Just use common sense, know your boundaries, and don't be afraid to get a little cold. It's good for you. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful. And if you're on the fence about whether or not you're going to try winter camping, I definitely recommend that you do. It's an experience that's not quite like any other experience. Some of the greatest places that are just overrun with people in the warmer months, you have them all to yourself and everything is just so fresh and crisp and beautiful. There's really nothing like it. So get out there and have a good time. Thanks for watching.